if a stone or a BB hits glass, it will cause a cone in the glass.
Oops, we fractured the cone. That's okay. We can tape it together and still be able to show you what we mean.
Now, with flint knapping, with chipping stone tools, you utilize that cone to your advantage. By striking on the stone at a certain angle, you can cause the fracture of that cone to travel through the mass in whatever direction you want. You need to find a flat surface that will be your platform, your striking platform, and edges on the sides that are less than 90 degrees. If your edge is more than 90 degrees, the cone will not be able to travel through the mass in the direction that you want. I use sandstone hammerstones while working on obsidian, and the reason why you want to use sandstone is because it has a certain grittiness to it. So when you strike the edge of the obsidian, it has a certain grabbing or catching and delaying effect on the edge until the flake can be released. If all you have is a round nodule and you can't find a flat surface on it, what you need to do is try and split it to create a flat surface. It takes a little bit of experimentation to figure out where you can split it and how hard to hit it and such. I have to try to hit this at an extreme angle, almost sliding off of it, in order for that cone to go in the direction I want to just cut off that end. So here we go. There. Now that left a clean flat top. This came off like so. Now I had struck it here at this angle, and the fracture went this way to cut off the top. The cone, if hit directly on top, the cone will go throughout the mass. Hitting it on an edge at an angle, part of that cone cuts through the stone and part of it is out in space. And by changing that angle, you can make that cut go where you want it to. Now to make blades, you do pretty much the same thing. You strike it at an extreme angle, trying to get blades that come along the sides, down the sides. The first thing you want to do when you have a nodule like this is to go all around it and get off the crusty cortex and what's called cleaning up the surface. By abrading or grinding the edge, it takes off all the sharp overhangs and edges. If you don't grind it or abrade it, sometimes if the edge is too sharp, when you strike it, the edge will just crush. If you abrade and blunt up the edge somewhat, it will hold the contact for a moment until that blade is released. There we go. Woo. Ideally, you don't want it to be curved. You want it to be as flat as possible and as thin as possible. The thinner the better, because there's less work you have to do on it. So what I'm going to try to do is get some flakes that are wider and thinner than this, that can be used for a blank to work something further out of it. Just like that. Now, it's wider and it's also a lot straighter. Tools that I use while working with obsidian is a deer antler flaker, or if you don't have deer antler, you can substitute with a piece of copper rod or even a nail. There are many techniques of flint knapping and pressure flaking. The most common method of pressure flaking is to hold it on a leather pad in your palm. The leather pad protecting your palm so you won't get cut by the small flakes that come off. And then pressing downwards towards your palm. Another technique of pressure flaking is to hold it on a leather pad on your leg and pressing down onto the pad, which will also cause flakes to come off. The same as with spalling flakes off of a core, you want to have a slightly blunted up edge to chip on. So by blunting it up, it dulls it and gives you a firm platform to set the tip of your flaker so that you can build up pressure without it crunching, and then slowly press downwards and releasing the flake. If the edge is too sharp, it will just crush. If it's too blunt, the flake won't come off at all. So you want to just very carefully shear the edge. Now the angles that you press into the stone are very important. If you want a short flake, you press almost straight down. If you want a long flake, you press further into the stone, which will cause it to travel further. You build up your pressure slowly inwards and then press down until the flake releases. Working with squared edges is a problem that you need to learn. The best method of getting a squared edge off is to start from one corner, take a flake, turn it over, go in that same place where you took the previous flake, and go on the other side, and keep working inwards. There's almost none of that squared edge left. Now I switched antlers to a finer point so I can do some more minute, detailed touch-up work along the edge. Okay, it's just about done. The final step would be to get it ready for hafting. There's a few things that could be done. One is to just abrade the edge right here where it will be wrapped with a rock or something to smooth it out so that your wrapping won't get cut by the edge. A very common way of preparing your point for hafting is to put notches in the sides for your wrappings to fit in. When I do my notching, I get a piece of antler that has been fairly well thinned. Notching is fairly simple. It's mainly taking a flake in the same place on both sides. First you take a flake where you want your notch to be, then turn it over and take a flake in the same place and turn it over again, Take another flake in the same place, working it deeper and deeper into the point. Now do the same to the other side. Turn it over. And there's your other notch.